Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. In this week's technical analysis, we're going to check out the big three, NEO, discuss China. I want to discuss how this is all going to play out over the next month or two with Bitcoin and Ethereum having their hard forks on the horizon, as well as touch on how I think we might be starting to see some orchestrated attacks from the mainstream media on cryptocurrency and how I think that's all going to play out. So this is a longer term chart of Bitcoin, and we're really keeping a close eye on this long-term downtrend line here, and we're coming to a really crucial point now. You guys know that I put a lot of weight in cycle analysis and flows of money in and out of the markets, which my green cycles represent down the bottom here. And once we break the low of the cycle at the beginning of the cycle, that tells you that the cycle will continue for the length of that bracket. So as soon as we broke this low here, that was a red flag. And sure enough, that fundamental news on top of the sort of cyclical analysis gives us that warning. But we'll just zoom in to a 4-hour chart in a second. But what I'm also looking at here is if we can get a push up from this bracket, the MACD would be crossing, and that's really bullish. Okay, a lot of traders watch this. If we can get a cross like we got here, okay, it's every chance to give us a long bull run again, just like last time. So let's just zoom in a bit and have a look what we're looking at in a bit more detail. So here's that long-term downtrend line since we peaked at around 5,000, but since we've had that flush out, that capitulation low, we've now had a few touches of this uptrend line. So at the moment, the fact is that sentiment's still very ordinary in this space. There's still worries about China. Will they ban mining? Okay, rumors floating around, and sentiment is far different to when we had the big run up in price, okay, and everyone's euphoric. So I think it's actually a good thing that we've consolidated at a reasonably high long-term fib level, considering how bad the news has been, how bad the sentiment's been. So if we can get that sentiment to turn positive with a few good announcements, more ETFs announced or something like that, we've heard those rumors about Amazon. If something like that can really spark this market, I think sentiment has now reset itself, and there's every chance we can get that next bull move higher. So that's why it's such an important point. And if we break down, okay, this head and shoulders pattern could play out, and we could easily see a retest of 3,000 if that pattern does play out. So the next day or so is just absolutely crucial now, in my opinion, and that's why I'm waiting to see if we're going to get more orchestrated attacks. So each time we've seen weakness surrounding China, okay, we've seen the Jamie Dimons of the world come out. And I really want to keep a close eye on the timing of these tweets and these bad news announcements. If technically the markets are a little bit weak and people are watching certain patterns, if the mainstream media are going to really attack the market when it's technically at its weakest to start driving the crypto prices lower. So that's something I'm keeping a real close eye on. But you guys know my longer term perspective for crypto is definitely a lot higher. But I'm just concerned that this trend might continue for a little while longer until we have some really good news or we get that Bitcoin hard fork behind us, okay? So keep a close eye on SegWit 2x and how that's all going to play out on either side of that debate, and I have made a video about that. I'm going to link that video on SegWit 2x and my Ethereum hard fork video in the description of these videos. So moving on to Ethereum. So last week we were trading around 243 at time of recording, and we were looking to get a little bit of a push up from this smaller bracket here, and sure enough we got that. But there's a lot of clutter on this chart. We'll zoom in a second, but again, I just want to take that longer term perspective. And on this daily chart, the MACD is about to cross again, and look back here, the last time we got that cross, we get that move from 130 back up to $400. So as I said, the MACD carries a lot of weight for a lot of traders. The RSI is at a reasonable level here where we can have another healthy run higher if we get some good fundamental news, and that's the next thing I want to talk about. So obviously that Ethereum Metropolis hard fork is now in the testing stages, and I think that's all going to go really well. And if we can get some really bullish news like that hits the markets, that Ethereum's upgraded well and it it starts to take off, and then we start to read Bitcoin headlines with SegWit hard fork issues, I really think there's going to be enough market forces in play to start to break this correlation. So I've been saying for months, and I've done a video called Correlations, that I really think that every cryptocurrency needs to start moving individually once this market matures and people recognize that each coin is very different. And it still frustrates me when Bitcoin moves one way or the other and drags everything with it. And unfortunately, that's the reality of the crypto complex at the moment because it's so young. But I definitely see that changing in the future. And I think that the two hard forks and the timing of both and how they both play out could really be that catalyst that finally allows these markets to shake those strong correlations. So here's a few trend lines. I know a lot of clutter on the chart again, but one thing you're going to notice with Bitcoin here, I'll just get out this level. So when we had the move off the bottoms and the pullback, this is what I was watching really, really closely. And this was the trade that we were looking at here was whether or not we form a higher low here or we get back to this level. And once we got that and the MACD cross, I sent a message out to my members in my crypto academy that this was the trade that we'd been waiting for patiently as the markets had been giving us very little to work with all week. And I said that we're going to play Ethereum for a bigger percentage move. So again, let's just have a look, and Ethereum chart is a lot stronger. So from the move off the bottom, sorry, I'll just get out of that. So the move from the bottom and then the pullback, okay, and then Ethereum's nowhere near that low. So that was clearly a higher low, and we got that MACD cross on the 4-hour chart, and we got a nice $20 move or so right up to that fib level 295, and now we're sort of cooling off. So that was the next thing I'll just touch on quickly. Don't overtrade. These markets have given us such good entries and exits from technical analysis standpoint over the past few months. Don't overtrade, okay? It's the easiest way to give your hard-earned money to someone that's more patient than you. And I'm working on a video called Who's on the Other Side of the Screen that I think you guys are really going to enjoy. So that's about all I'm looking for Ethereum now. Again, a shorter-term uptrend line here starting to form. We've definitely broken that longer-term downtrend line, okay? So bit more of a shallow trend line here again that I'll be keeping an eye on. We had a pierce through but weren't able to close above it on the daily chart. So those longer term downtrend lines are still intact, but we're starting to form some shorter term stair step higher lows and some trend lines. So again, Ethereum at a really crucial point. Let's have a look when that next cycle bottoms, the big cycles that have the most power, the 27th of September. So maybe we play around in here a little bit before we get that next push higher for Ethereum. Litecoin, again, just look at these nice time cycle patterns that the charts really follow. And here's that downtrend line. Litecoin was only just able to break it, but that long-term trend line's been broken. Again, Litecoin's been such a power of strength and so reliable this year, and it is starting to break down a little bit, which does surprise me. But again, I think if the market, that crypto complex in general recovers, you're going to see big percentage gains, and Litecoin's going to quickly recover to over $50. This cycle bracket here bottoms on the 29th of September, so that's going to bottom this week as well. Let's keep an eye on Litecoin. Again, I think if the market moves higher, this is not a bad trade to play, as a percentage gain is going to be bigger than any moves we see out of Bitcoin or Ethereum, I believe. So that's what I'm looking at for Litecoin. Finally, I just want to touch on NEO and the China situation, and we're starting to see some positive movements from individual smaller coins, and again, that ties into all those correlations I'm talking about. And the more good announcements we see from smaller coins, the more chance we have of the sentiment in the entire complex to pick up and start to move Bitcoin with it. So here's the NEO BTC pair that I've got a bit more of my analysis on, my time cycles. Okay, we've got a bit of a push higher here. We've finally broken this long-term downtrend line. Plenty of bounces, a nice solid base being formed here on the the 78.6% retracement level from that big move we saw. But I just want to jump over to the US dollar price on Bittrex here. And again, that long-term downtrend line that we've been keeping an eye on. We're coming to that really crucial point here where we are going to test it. So there's a couple of ways you can draw this, but I really think that the worst is behind now. We're starting to hear rumors of maybe the Chinese government are working with NEO. Maybe the Chinese government want to develop their own cryptocurrency. It all comes back to capital controls, and the Chinese government don't want large sums of money leaving the country. So we know they've got those capital controls in place for their banking system, and we've seen the effects of it in Australia here, where Chinese people will pour millions of dollars into real estate because they can't directly just take money out of the country unless they make a purchase with it. So this all ties into cryptocurrency. I'm going to expand this channel in a lot of ways to discuss, I guess, other real-world financial issues, because it all is going to tie into cryptocurrency as cryptocurrency becomes a huge part of the economy and the financial world in our day-to-day lives as we move forward. So I picked up more NEO at $15 in that panic low when I did that live recording for you guys. But I definitely think this is starting to look like a nice base after a big move and a nice deep retrace. But again, that washout of sentiment where everyone was in love with NEO, and now it's sort of had that time to cool off and reset, and it's just going to take the slightest bit of good news for this to get some big percentage gains to the upside. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. It's been a bit longer than normal, but that's the sort of stuff I like diving into, especially for my members in my Crypto Academy. There's obviously a link to join in the description of all my videos if you're interested in that. Please hit like, share these videos around, subscribe if you haven't already, and as always, thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.